Kroger brand products exclusively at Baker's have the great taste you'll celebrate. That's why over 40 million people choose Kroger brand products, making them a true crowd pleaser. And with quality guaranteed, you'll love your choice or get your money back. Score Kroger brand products with savings you can cheer for and great taste you can't resist. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I'm John Schmeelk, joined by Paul Dottino. We're taking a bunch of your calls today at 201-939-4513. Very happy to be back at our regular time today, 12:30, and we should be rolling this way through the rest of the year. I got the practice schedule today, so next week, 12:30 looks good. And then, assuming the regular season practice schedule is what it has been, which I assume it will be, I've kind of asked about that. I don't expect any changes. We should be at 12:30, ready to roll now through the middle of January. So buckle up, folks. We're about to have some fun here heading into the Giants' 2024 regular season. Unfortunately, we have to wait a little bit. We still have one more preseason game to go tomorrow night. It'll be fun. We'll see who ends up playing. Brian Daboll has been very cagey as to who might play in this game for the Giants, Paul.
Yeah.
Either way, and unless some reports came out this morning that I didn't see, but I haven't seen any, I would not expect, if the starters play, for them to play much. So I think we can get a lot of the second and third stringers in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. And, you know, I've been asked by so many people, don't you think Daniel Jones could use a few more snaps? And Daniel, of course, is a guy who wants to play. He understands that, hey, he was off for 9 months because of the torn ACL, got a chance to play last week in one half against the Texans. And, you know, he's like, look, I'm always ready. I'm ready to go. If Coach wants me to play against the Jets, I'm ready to go. And I get that. And I don't think that's just an answer. I think he means it. I think he would absolutely like to play some snaps if they would let him. But here's the thing. Not only do I not think that Coach wants to play his starters, but in particular, for me, I could not even ponder Daniel Jones taking one snap if he had reserve offensive linemen playing in front of him.
No, that's the thing. If Daniel Jones is going to play, you must start Andrew Thomas. So if you don't want to start Andrew Thomas, you can't start Daniel Jones.
You can't.
No, that's the rule. Those guys are a unit. If one's in, the other is in. You cannot have, well, I suppose you could play Andrew Thomas and not play Daniel Jones, but if Daniel Jones is going to be in there,
yeah,
Andrew Thomas must be
mandatory.
Mandatory. Not even a question. So
yeah.
I'm with you. So I don't know how much we're going to see him, if at all. Again, maybe he'll want to play him a series or something like that. Who knows? Brian Daboll, again, has not told us. I've recorded my pregame interview with him. He did not tell me. So we do not know what he's going to do. But again, I would not expect, especially based on what he's done the last 2 years, though he has handled this offseason a little bit differently.
Right.
In terms of some of this stuff, I would still be surprised, again, based on the history, what we'll see. A couple things I want to touch on, Paul, and then I want to get as many of your calls in at 201-939-4513. If you've called already this week, you want to call in again, that's fine. We'll take your calls today. We're going to have to end about 5 minutes early at around 1:25, recording a special Papa's Perspective with Bob Papa and a special guest. You'll see pop up later on in the year. All right, Paul, there was a lot made yesterday on the internet about the Giants' joint practice against the Jets.
Yes.
And we were live there. We talked, on the show here after the game. You can go find that episode. There's no video for it, so it's just on podcast platforms. Go check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we were very clear about what happened defensively for the Giants. And if you want to criticize what happened in the Giants' secondary in that practice, I think it's more than fair.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about offensively. And frankly, to the beat writers' credits coming out of that practice, nobody was killing the offense necessarily, like right after practice online talking about what happened. It was that a lot of short passes, a lot of checkdowns and things like that. I don't think Daniel Jones threw an interception in that practice.
He did not.
DeVito threw one over the middle.
Correct.
There were only 2 or 3 passes down the field.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they were both drops. One by Malik Neighbors, one by Theo Johnson.
Yes.
Malik Neighbors talked about that publicly after practice. I talked to Theo Johnson about his drop the other day, and he actually said to me, and I didn't realize it at the time, Paul. I'm not sure if you did. Yeah, that was actually on Sauce Gardner, that play.
I did not realize that.
I did not realize that. He said he was, I was really mad because, that was against Sauce. Like, oh, really, was it? I didn't notice
Whoa.
that. And he said, yeah. So they were both really frustrated about the drops. But walking out of that and doing the show on Thursday afternoon, or Wednesday afternoon, pardon me, neither one of us is like, boy, that was a rough day for the offense. Like, I just didn't see it. Were there a lot of big plays? No. Did they miss some opportunities? Sure.
Right.
But this wasn't a deal where, like, the Giants' first-team offense, like, embarrassed themselves against the Jets. And I want to give Darius Slayton some credit. Because he had an interview yesterday, and I think it was printed. I forget which beat writer had it. Pearson, did you see offhand which beat writer did the interview with Slayton yesterday? I'll have to look it up. I think it might have been Pat Leonard. And he was basically, guys, look, you looked at what the Jets were doing defensively, and we mentioned this on the show on Wednesday. They were playing safeties over the top the whole practice. So
Yes,
what is Daniel supposed to do? If he throws it deep into double coverage and it gets intercepted, you're going to kill him for that. If he makes the right decision and throws it short, then now the national media is going to go watch this Sauce Gardner clip, which Sauce Gardner went on social media and said, you guys are making way too much of this. Like, what are you doing here? Mm-hmm. And you're going to kill him for that. So what exactly do you want the quarterback to do when the Jets are playing a bunch of deep zone coverages and there's no room to throw the ball over the top? So I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought the Darius Slayton thing, it was Pat Leonard, right? If you guys want to go check that out, he basically there was a great, I think there was a somebody screenshotted a large quote from Darius on Twitter, just talking in the article, like, guys, I don't know, he made the right decisions based on how the Jets are playing us. Those are the passes he was supposed to throw.
Well, I think, for those folks who listen to our audio program, we did 1 hour live as soon as the practice was over from the Jets facility. And I think we talked about it right up top and said it was clear philosophically by the way the offenses called their plays and the way it was designed. The Jets took a lot of deep shots. Mm-hmm. They were aggressive. Rodgers was going short, medium, and deep. He was hitting all three levels of the field with his passes. And right away, John and I told everybody, the Giants did a ton of running plays. They did screens. They did flat passes. They did a bunch of short dump-offs and checkdowns.
Slants to Wanda Robinson over the middle. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we said right away, Giants threw like 2 passes longer than 25 yards. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it. We told you. We were not fooled. John and I were there. We saw it. We knew what was going on. And it was clear that the Jets had decided to use a much more aggressive, attacking, offensive game plan during the practice. So, the criticism against Daniel Jones or the Giants offense, whoever was doing that, fans, bloggers, amateur scouts out in the crowd, those folks.
And even some national media people jumped on that too, that weren't even there, and they just made a lot of assumptions. To be honest with you, they did.
Totally misguided. All you had to do was watch the practice with a knowledgeable eye, and you could see the difference and how the offensive plays were structured. Now, defensively, again, the Giants gave up way too many big plays, and there were too many times that there were open receivers in the Giants secondary, and we told you that too,
right?
Didn't we?
Yeah, no, that was the first thing we said when we came on, talking about how good Aaron Rodgers looked. I mean, he
was
great. Great. So, the reason I wanted to bring this up to start here, not to bring up a dopey social media narrative that's out there, it kind of brings me back to this game on Saturday that the Giants are heading into here, and kind of what, and I'll use the word again, narrative has been here, where it feels like, especially nationally, and again, I don't feel like this is the people that have been around the team as much. This is more how the outside is looking at it. Because everyone's doing their NFL previews now, national people, what teams are going to look like. And from the outside in, I feel like most concerns about the Giants this year are about quarterback. Can the offense score enough points?
There's a lot of that.
I think for me, and my sense is that for the people that are around the team more, they're seeing this very differently. This is more, well, can you figure out how to cover somebody? Right? How is your very young secondary that's filled with nothing but guys that are in their 3rd NFL season or younger? All of them, besides Nick McLeod. From Flop, even Pinnock, to Belton, to Newman, to Banks. 3rd-year players or younger in that secondary. Mm-hmm. Can you figure out a way to make that work if you're Shane Bowen or Jerome Henderson? We know Jerome's a very good defensive backs coach.
We know that. We know that.
So can they figure this out in the secondary? I feel pretty good the front's going to be okay. We'll see about the depth behind the starters. I think that's the one question you have there. The depth behind Bobby Okereke with the Micah McFadden injury and things like that.
Right.
What's happening at linebacker behind those two guys? Those are legitimate questions. But my bigger concern now as I head into this preseason game and I'm trying to figure out the depth of this roster, Paul, I did my little fake 53, and I think me and you are on Monday, and we'll do more of our Tuesday, one of those 2 days we're on next week, and we'll do our prediction 53 like we usually do. Offense was pretty easy for me. Like, I wasn't, floundering, trying to find spots. Like, there are guys that I might have to let go that I don't want to let go on offense. That's not the case for me on the defensive side of the ball, where I have a lot of more, all right, well, what does this guy do this week? What does this guy do this week? So that's how I wanted to kind of bring this all the way full circle here. I'm looking at depth on the defensive line, depth at linebacker, depth in the secondary. I think a lot of those spots, maybe 3 or 4, even 5 of those spots could be decided based on how these guys play, and they're going to get a lot of playing time on Saturday.
They have to.
At those spots.
They have to. And, here's the funny part about it, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday with Matt, John, and that is, in this game, if you're going to predominantly play your backups and your deep depth chart guys, the one bad part about this, and it is the flip side to it, and Brandon Brown talked about this, the assistant GM, the other day, okay? What a guy does in practice, you can kind of push that to the side and hide that. So if there's a bubble guy who you're not sure of, for example, if Elijah Chapman was a bubble guy, well, you might have been able to hide him and sneak him onto the practice squad until he ran down a running back from 45 yards behind in Houston. Now that he did what he did in that preseason game, everybody around the league has seen it. Everybody knows about it. All the media blew up about it. You can't hide him anymore. So now, here's the thing. Who are the Giants' bubble guys coming up against the Jets on Saturday? And then how well will they perform on Saturday that almost forces you to have to keep them on the 53? Because now if they were a bubble guy and the guy has, I'll give you a great example, Victor Cruz, right? He is the best example I can give you, folks. Victor Cruz, I'm telling you, I like the guy, but I'm pretty sure he was not going to make the team until he caught 3 touchdown passes in a preseason game against the Jets. And you know for a fact, by Rex Ryan's comments right after the game, guess what? If the Giants had cut him, not only was he going to get taken, the Jets would have taken him.
Heck, and there was a worry, Paul, the year before he pulled his hamstring. They might have been in a similar situation when they were trying to figure out what to do with him.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. How does the balancing act have to be played this week when you're going to play a bunch of guys who the team believes is on the bubble, and now, you know what, they may be forced into making a couple of decisions on some guys because they may ball out Saturday, and now they don't have a decision to make. The guy's going to be on the team. It's like if let's pick a bubble guy. Give me a bubble guy. Isaiah Hodgins. Let's say Isaiah Hodgins goes out and just has 3 touchdown catches on Saturday against the Jets. Well, if the Giants had any inkling of trying to keep Isaiah Hodgins, that's going to change the whole impact of it.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what happens. 201-939-4513. The spots that I'm keeping an eye on, Paul, and then we'll get to your calls as soon as we make this final point here, Paul. When I'm keeping an eye on that last offensive line spot, who's offensive lineman number 9.
Yeah.
I think we feel pretty good about the top 6. I'll give them to the fans just so you have them. Illuminor, Van Roten, Stinney, John Michael Schmitz, Van Roten, Andrew Thomas.
Runyon.
I thought I said Runyon already.
I thought you missed him.
Oh, did I say Van Roten twice?
I'm sorry.
No,
I thought you said Van Roten twice.
I might have. Let me do it again. Illuminor, Van Roten, Stinney, Schmitz, Runyon, Andrew Thomas, Evan Neal, and I think both of us think Josh Azudu was on.
Yes.
Right? So that's 8.
Yes.
Usually teams keep 9
yes.
on the offensive line. So I would expect one more. Are we looking at a backup guard center in a guy like Austin Schlottman? Are we looking at maybe a young developmental guy? Or are we looking for a guy that they think of more of as a tackle, like Joshua Miles? who's going to earn that final offensive line spot. They might know that already in-house. They might already know who their guy is.
Or maybe they're waiting till Saturday.
Maybe. I don't know the answer to that. But on offense, that's the main spot. And then does a fourth running back or a fourth tight end do something that forces the Giants' hand? And again, I think it's Bellinger, Theo Johnson, and Manhurts at tight end.
Yes.
And I think at running back, it's Gray, Tracy, Singletary.
Mm-hmm.
Does a fourth guy at one of those two spots, and I'm assuming DeVito's on. Does
So am I.
a fourth guy at one of those two other spots kind of step up? And then what kind of player do they want to keep for that 6 wide receiver spot? Are you looking for more of a receiver in a Hodgins or Robinson, which Brian Dable seemed to kind of indicate along the way here that that's important to him?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it more of a special teams guy like a Miles Boykin or Bryce Ford-Wheaton for that 6th spot? Assuming, again, McKenzie or Gunner's hurt right now, is going to be on because they're the return special. So those are the spots on offense that I'm keeping an eye on.
Yeah, Matt was saying yesterday he was considering a 7th receiver. I don't see it. I can't. I can't do it.
Who are you taking off?
Well, he was saying that he wanted to go Boykin, I think, as a special teamer, counting him as a 7th receiver. Look, here's my problem with that, okay? I understand when Boykin came from Pittsburgh, that was his resume. It was as a special teams demon. I get it. And the Giants have great respect for his special teams ability. But if it comes down to him having to make the team at the expense of a receiver like Allen Robinson, I can't do it. I can't.
If a 7th receiver makes it, it would have to be as a special teams player.
No doubt.
Where if this guy never steps foot at wide receiver for us in his time with the Giants, we don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But and then Miles Boykin will be your gunner every game. He will have to be one of your 2 gunners. That has to be that important to you.
I don't see how they can keep that 7th receiver / special teams guy because you got to keep 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and you would be at 26 on offense instead of 25.
That's a problem.
Now, you can do that if you want to keep 26 offensive players, 24 defensive players, then of course you have your 3 specialists. You can do that. I always try to even it out at 25 and 25 if I can.
See, most teams, and I talked to Albert Breer the other day, right, when he was here a couple of days ago at camp.
Is that Giants Total Podcast up yet, Pearson, or not yet? Breer?
It should be.
Breer is up there.
Breer's up already?
We did about a half an hour. He was great.
All right, did you ask him about the philosophy of 3rd quarterbacks around the league?
I did not.
Okay, that was part of our conversation on the
sideline.
sideline. And I said, Albert, with all the quarterbacks who were hurt last year, and we know that the NFL saw a record number of different starting quarterbacks for a season, I said to him, what is your estimation? What is your percentage estimation of how many teams will keep a 3rd quarterback on their 53? What's your guess, John? 3rd quarterback on the 53. How many teams?
20%?
Okay, I told him I thought half.
And what did he say?
He said he thought it would be less than half, but wouldn't really give me a number. He just said probably more like 30 or 40%.
All right, like
but
a third.
He said less than half.
So he said more like a third.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I think it could be as many as a half because I think teams got scared out of their wits last year with all those quarterbacks that went down.
Well, the question is, if you feel like you can keep the 3rd quarterback on your practice squad and be fine, then you don't have a worry. That's the problem. If you think you can keep that 3rd guy in your practice squad like the Giants did with DeVito last year, then you don't have to keep a 3rd guy in your active roster.
He's got to be somebody who you don't think is going to get claimed.
Right.
Right. He's got to be an unknown. He's got to be literally a nobody who you're thinking, no one's going to be sniffing around this guy. It's okay. We'll sneak him onto the practice squad as number 3. But if you've got a decent number 3, and I think I did this with Jonathan. I looked at all the 3rd string quarterbacks in the league.
Oh, God bless you.
Well, it was a good exercise to do.
I know. I'm giving you credit.
And I said, okay, where does Tommy DeVito rank? And I'm telling you right now, he's in the top 5 or 6 of number 3s in the league. He's that high.
Yeah, I'll buy that. In terms of number 3, sure.
Okay, so now if you think, let's use your number. You said 20%. Let's go off of Albert's number and go down to 20%.
You know, that way we make it an even number. Let's do 25% because that's 8 teams then. Because there's 32 teams, that's 8.
Okay. Well, you know what? I don't think there's any doubt he's in the top 8 3rd stringers. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, but then teams have to cut a guy that knows their system for somebody that doesn't. That can get dicey sometimes.
It can, but Tommy's also young and has upside.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would be shocked. I would be surprised. Shocked is wrong, but I would be surprised if he was not on the roster.
So point being, though, I just said to him, I thought as many as half the teams in the league. He thought I was too high on that. But when you consider now that there'll be that many more keeping a third quarterback on the 53, it leaves less room for one of those special teams guys.
By the way, we just got it's true. We just got a tweet, by the way, from Kenneth Dale. What are the chances Evan Neal gets cut?
None.
0.
None.
0. And by the way, it should be 0.
Yep.
For a guy of that size and that talent, that was your 6th overall pick 2 years ago, that's only played in 21 or 22 NFL games. I got to check that number.
It's 2 dozen. I just say 2 dozen.
It's even.
Is it actually?
I think it's
Is it for
slightly
sure
less
less
than that? Yes.
I just tell people 2 dozen.
It's either
because that's
20,
easy to say.
Of course, it's either 21 or 22. I think if you count the 2 playoff games in 2022. You can't under any. It doesn't make any sense. And this is not me trying to give out scholarships and say, well, you have to keep him because you drafted him. Like no, like it
is 21.
He's the 3rd best tackle on the team.
21. It's 20 regular season plus playoff games.
No, 2 playoff games, right?
Two playoff games.
So 22.
Yes, 22.
Like he is the 3rd best tackle on the roster right now.
Well, here's the thing. Diehard Giants fan. I've known the guy for years. He's talking about the offensive line. And he doesn't even mention Evan Neal to me the other day. And I said to him, this was, actually it was yesterday afternoon. And I said to him, you forgot Evan Neal. And he goes, oh, he's easy to forget about. And I said, no. I said, you don't understand. I said, first of all, they're not getting rid of him. And second of all, he started to practice. And we saw the first 2 days that he got on the field, and this is now under new offensive line coach Carmen Brasillo. He looked like he knew what he was doing.
And by the way, that's the other thing. I sign on. In fact, I think it was when we were driving home because Paul and I drove home together from the game, and I look at Twitter and I see Evan Neal is trending. I'm like, oh no, like what's going on?
You didn't tell me that.
So maybe it was after I got home that night.
Must have been after.
It must have been when I got home
on your way
that
from
night.
Picking up the food.
Yes, correct. Good, by the way. So I made the big mistake of clicking on the trending button on Y. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Someone had posted 1 pass pro in one-on-one rep from practice. 1.
Right.
Where he won. He won the rep.
Okay.
The responses. Evan Neal's back. Carmen Brasillo's a genius. Look at how good he is.
Oh,
I'm like,
boy. Uh-oh.
You lunatics. And by the way, this just shows I'm working both ways of this. When I yell at people for being negative over one bad training camp rep, do you not think Evan Neal has won a one-on-one rep in 3 years of training camp?
Yes.
He's had a million of those plays.
Yes, he has.
One rep. And it was against Eric Watts. Is that the young defensive lineman for the Jets? Ryan Watts, Eric Watts, something like that?
Watts. I forget his first name.
Like, guys, you need to relax. It's 1 practice rep. And again, what we've seen, we've liked. Dable seemed optimistic that Evan Neal is going to play in this game. That's not, to use Paul's words, a bubble guy, I'm excited to see him play in the game. Let's see Evan Neal healthy, get some in-game snaps, and see how he plays. So how about that? Let's watch Evan Neal on Saturday night.
And actually, we never got to that question or that statement, but he is the number 1 guy I'm looking at on Saturday.
Yeah, me too.
Not even close.
Yep.
Not even close.
And again, that's not me and Paul, and I don't want to speak for you, so interrupt me if I'm wrong. That's not saying if he plays well, he's going to march back into the starting lineup in week 1.
Agreed.
But this is a guy now where you want to now you have a chance to slowly develop him, make him better, so that that's me knocking on wood. If you do have an injury at the offensive tackle spot, you feel good about, all right, Evan, you got this.
Or guard, because then if you have to move Illuminor.
Right. We have not seen him cross-train at guard yet. We'll see if they start doing that in practice. Once they start closing it to the media.
I think Illuminor would go inside if a guard got hurt. As long as Neal proves that he's competent, I think they would put him back at right tackle and they would move Illuminor to guard. I do.
You think Neal would be first off the bench rather than Stinney?
If Neal proves to this coaching staff over the course of the next several weeks that he can do it, I believe he could be.
Week 1.
Week 1, no.
Okay.
That's too soon.
Down the road, maybe. I think right now Stinney would be the first guy.
Yes.
Assuming Van Roten ends up winning the starting job.
And
I don't know if he will.
Probably through the first maybe 3 to 4 weeks of the season.
I think that
but after that, if Neil proves like he's getting this down, I think he would be the first guy up.
I think the Giants right now have a clear top 6 in their offensive line hierarchy.
Correct.
And that's Stinney, Van Roten, and the other 4 starters.
Yeah. I have no problem. I have no problem with that at all. But the value, if Neil is able to get this thing on track, the value of having him right
absolutely
is immense.
And I don't know if you feel good about, like, let's say if Andrew.
Don't even go there.
Let's say if there's an issue.
Pearson.
Let's say if there's an issue
Stop
on.
me.
Let's say if there's an issue on the left side.
Oh.
I don't know if I would want to swap sides with Neil, though, at this point. He hasn't played the left side in so long. I don't know if I would feel good about slotting him on the left side right away. You know what I mean? Just because he hasn't been over there.
I don't even want to contemplate this.
He won't entertain this hypothetical.
I really
He
don't.
will not entertain the
I really don't
hypothetical.
even want to think
Okay.
about this. I mean, this is like a world without pizza. Don't do this to me.
Okay. Real quick, I already mentioned the defense. Do you have anything to add about corner, interior defensive line, backup linebackers being 3 spots to watch?
No, I think those are all fair. I will say this. If Isaiah McKenzie is the return guy, and it looks like he is by all accounts, what we've seen now the last week and a half with Olszewski being sidelined by the groin, if that's the case and he's the guy, are you going to put him back on returns?
No, I wouldn't.
I
put
don't
him
think
back
so,
there at all.
right?
I would have Tyrone Tracy back there, or whoever else you're going to
Or
back there.
maybe a Urasante.
Or Dante Miller, whoever.
You know?
Whoever you want to put back there.
So,
I
so
agree
there's
with you.
so then there's no reason to look at the return game really either, because I think that's going to be a throwaway spot.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. And by the way, just remember the Jeff Fiegel's rule of thumb. See who lines up on the first kickoff play, the first kick return play, the first punt play, and the first punt return play. And those guys are more likely than not your core special teams players.
That's always something to watch
Always something to watch. So you want to go back and pause it and see who's on the field. That might give you an idea of who might be on the team in week number 1.
There's no better place to watch live TV this fall than Hulu Plus Live TV. Why? Because you get your favorite sports like football, local channels, shows, and so much more. Plus, get Hulu's entire streaming library with Disney Plus and ESPN Plus included with your plan. No long-term contracts or hidden fees. Don't wait. Start your 3-day free trial of Hulu Plus Live TV today. Live TV plan required. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for new and eligible returning subscribers only if available. Terms and restrictions apply. Learn more at hulu.com.
201-939-4513. Already mentioned the Giants Huddle podcast. I think it's been rebranded at this point, the Giants Podcast Network feed. Yeah, so guys, do not freak out. If you're on your podcast feed and you see, wait, hold on, I'm subscribed to the Giants Huddle. What is this weird logo and Giants Podcast Network?
Is it on the phone?
We are rebranding it. Yeah, so if you go to your
I'm going to take a look now so we can tell people.
Yes. Whatever podcast network you use, like look for the podcast. And it's now the Giants Huddle feed is called the Giants Podcast Network feed. So we're going to have all the Giants Huddles on there. We're not reducing Giant Huddles, the same amount. They're all going to be there. We're also going to have, Giants Hangout will be on there. Her playbook will be on there. Even some draft seasons are going to be on there, though the draft season feed is going to be up. So if you're looking for Giants Hangout or her playbook on those individual feeds, those are going away at the end of the month. So make sure you find it on the Giants Podcast Network podcast feed, which is now
what about on the phone?
Giants Huddle feed.
They're still on the phone right now. Is that okay?
It still says Huddle on the phone?
It still says on the phone.
Yeah, but that's separated. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's on the phone. I'll have to check it. It is on Podcast Network now? Oh, yeah. So right now it's the split Podcast Network Huddle. So,
okay.
Yeah, you're on the app. The app is going to operate a little bit differently,
okay.
I think. So, but again, Giants Huddle podcast feed, that's what you want.
I lean on him for all the techie stuff. I need to. Yabba dabba doo!
Tim in Charleston will lead us off today. Tim, how's it going?
Hey guys, how you doing? I haven't talked to you in a while, Paul. I've been talking to John mostly.
What's up?
But, anyhow, so I had two things. One I'm going to drop till next week because it doesn't fit with the theme of the show. So, but first I have kind of a hypothetical question for you about the roster makeup, and then I wanted to go through the numbers that I had originally put together, which seem to coincide somewhat with yours. But I have a couple of questions on them if I could. So first thing, I was thinking. I mean, we obviously have a couple of few, which is a word of mine, candidates who could potentially be IR'd, but they have to be obviously on the 53 first. I mean, I know he's talking about these guys as week to week, but we know week to week can be week to week for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yes, that's correct. It can be.
So the question is, guys, let's just I'm not projecting this, but let's just say a Michael McFadden, for instance. If it looks like he's going to be out a while, obviously you keep him on the roster. Do you think that then they would have 2 or 3 guys that they could IR, and then when everyone releases their other guys on Tuesday, they'll pick up those 2 or 3 guys and use the IRing of those players to fit those guys on the roster and let it sort itself out over the first 4 weeks of the season?
Well, Tim, they added a new rule this year where there are 2 players that you can now IR at the time that you make your 53. So they will not take up 2 roster spots anymore. When in past years you had to put them on the 53, then you had to IR them a day after. Now you can take
awesome.
2 and you can IR them on the day you do your final roster cuts. You can keep 53 guys, and in addition to those 53, you can put 2 guys on the IR designated to return for the year. So that'll give you some flexibility with, guys like McFadden, guys like maybe a Lawrence Cager, guys like a Gunnar Olszewski. If you want to, if they're going to be long-term, you don't want to expose them to waivers, you can use one of those 2 spots on them.
Yeah, the injured reserve, I think, is what they call it, right? I think that's the term they gave it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I guess I didn't. I may have heard the term and not realized what it meant before. That's excellent. I think that's a good role, too. It's a good number. And if you do have another one, you could always, if you felt like you needed another one, you could always IR somebody who you initially had in your 53. So I'm with you, John, in terms of I think the offense, in the way I had it, and I put this together a couple of weeks ago, and all I did was cut out some of my flexibility, is on offense, 3 quarterbacks, 7 between running back and tight end, 9 O-linemen, and then I had wide receivers at 6 or 7, again, on the assumption that one of those guys might really be a core special teamer. But if you do keep the 7th one, as you said, John, then you've got 26 offense and 24 on D. So the way I have my defense set up.
And honestly, Tim, to be honest with you, I'm down to 6 combined running back and tight end now. I had it at 7. I'm now down to 6.
Okay, I thought you said when you were talking before, but there's going to be one more to one of those positions.
No, because right now, if you have 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 3 tight end, that's 9 guys, right? You keep 6 at wide receiver, you're at 15. And then you could put 9 at offensive line, you're at 24. Yeah, right. So you have one more spot you can fill, whether that's a 7th wide receiver, 10th offensive lineman, or either a running back or a tight end. That's correct. Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and again, although that IR rule then does open it up a little bit. So then on defense, basically I've got 5 core defensive linemen, 4 edge rushers, 4 linebackers, 4 safeties, and then I have Isaiah Simmons as simply a separate guy who can play linebacker, safety, or slot, right? So he's kind of your jack of all trades. And then at cornerback, I had 6 or 7. So obviously, if it's 6, we could get by with 24 on defense then, and have that 26th one on offense. But yesterday, Paul and Matt were debating whether they could afford to keep 5 on D and DL in the middle. And the way I'm looking at it, I don't know. I think they could. So I kind of wanted to get your feedback a little on that. And then I had one last question to throw on top, and I'll take it all off the air, which is, the 5'11" guy at defensive line.
Elijah Chapman, yeah.
Yeah, Chapman. I'm sorry, it skipped brain fart. I was watching the broadcast, which otherwise I thought was terrible on NFL, because they had the Houston guys, and it was annoying because they would say, "Oh, there was a penalty there was a holding penalty by the Giants secondary," and they wouldn't say who it was or anything, or they just announced the number. I'm like, come on, guys, it's preseason. If we're watching the game, we want to know who's doing what and who's making mistakes. But it was what it was. It wasn't like watching the Giants broadcast because they were the home team, obviously. So, but the one thing they mentioned about Chapman was that he had been a fullback as well, and that there was actually a package for him when he was in college.
Yes, at SMU.
Yeah, at SMU there was actually a package for him. Now they didn't make any comments as to if he ran any plays as a blocker or as anything else. But I was wondering, I know you guys couldn't even say it if you saw it, but do you think that is something that the Giants coaching staff would entertain? He's using him as a blocking and fullback because of his agility and power. And,
if he makes the roster, Tim, down the line, maybe that's something you can mess around with, but we have not seen anything to indicate that so far.
Correct.
So then I just kind of want to get your feedback on 6 or 7 corners and 5 defensive linemen and Isaiah Simmons, and I'll take the rest off the air. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next week. I'll come back with that other point.
Thank you, Tim.
About I'd like to say. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I have Simmons listed as a safety on my list just because he can be in the box, he can be deep, he can be in the slot. That's kind of where you put safety. So I have him as a safety. He's my 4th safety. That's what I have. I would think 6 corners. I think it's hard to keep fewer than that, given
certainly can't keep fewer
injuries. So that's where I have it, and frankly, I had trouble getting to 6 after you get past the top 4 guys. So that's where I stood with that. And yeah, I mean, I think you can easily keep 5 defensive linemen. I think the question is whether or not you're going to keep a 6th.
Yeah, Matt was going for 4 defensive tackles.
Oh, you can't do that.
And I was telling him it's got to be 5.
Has to be 5.
To me, it has to be. He was looking at 4.
Remember, you're going to have 4 of those guys on the field and goal line. You need 4 active on game day.
You know, that's why for me, the question was who's going to be the 5th guy. That's the way I looked at the defensive tackle spot. Who's going to be number 5? Is it going to be DJ Davidson? Is it going to be Jimmy Horn? That's the way I see it. But,
yeah, because I think Riley, you need him as your backup nose.
Absolutely.
Right? And then...
See, here's what happened, John. They were overcrowded at the D tackle spot. Then they traded Jordan Phillips, and Ryder Anderson got hurt.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, now they weren't really overcrowded there anymore. Now they're kind of back to roughly the number they'd like. And as I said on the program yesterday, and I tried to explain to Matt, it's not just taking defensive tackles. You got to know this guy can play nose, this guy can play 3 technique. It's not just homogenized as a defensive tackle. You can't do that.
Right.
So to me, Nacho has Chapman behind him. Riley is behind Dexter. And now who is your 5th guy?
And I think DJ can do both.
I think he can
which
too.
Which is why I would lean that way.
I agree with you.
Timmy Horn is more of a 3 tech and maybe even like a 5 tech.
Well, because he can play defensive end in a 4-3 front. Davidson can't do that. But I think that Davidson, he's a young guy who they really liked coming out, and they thought that he was going to have a real good upside. Now, injuries have kind of ruined his early career. I think it's very fair to say.
Tore his ACL, missed his whole first year.
What are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do? I don't think they're ready to give up on him. So I think that, in addition to what we believe is his position flexibility in the interior, you combine those 2 things, he's got to be my 5th defensive tackle.
201-939-4513. Let's go to Wilson in Roxbury. He's up next. Hi, Wilson.
Hey, Johnny. You told me I can call twice in 1 week.
Yeah, what do you got?
Listen, okay, real quick. Rapid fire real quick before I get to my main point, that is defensive backs. If you ever put Evan Neal as the left guard, you got to have like an ambulance to stand by for Daniel Jones. I mean,
wait.
Johnny, don't do this to me.
Left guard or left tackle?
Whatever he. Oh, I think.
Whatever. Whatever. What do you mean, whatever? That's not a position.
What does Andrew Thomas play? Left tackle.
Yes, left tackle.
You said you can. If God forbid something happened to Andrew Thomas, you would put Evan.
No. I said I wouldn't. I said I wouldn't feel comfortable sliding in there.
He said the opposite.
I said the opposite.
And I'm the one who doesn't even want to contemplate Andrew Thomas being injured.
I just asked a question. I wasn't
okay.
advocating for
I thought you didn't take your medicine this morning. That's why you said crazy stuff like that. Okay. Listen, real quick. Kidding aside, and I don't want to beat on this kid, Evan Neal, but you can't wait 5 years for your 6th overall pick to develop. You can't do that.
Well, luckily this is your 3rd year, not your 5th.
Right.
Well, 5 years, whatever. You know what I mean, Johnny? Eventually, if it's a bust, it's going to be the first or the last bust.
No, but Wilson, I understand, but remember, he's barely played more than 1 full season worth of games
Johnny,
with all the injuries.
I know that, but that's also part of the NFL. You can't wait for this guy. Well, eventually he's going to get healthy. Eventually, you got to close the book and move on.
Wilson, I want you and every other caller who has ever dialed us up and railed on Evan Neal. If he turns out to be a big upside guy and gets it right, I want every single one of you guys to call us back and tell us about how you screwed that one up and how happy you are the Giants kept him.
Paulie, if I make a mistake, I say, but I'm not giving up on the guy. I'm just
okay. It sounded like it a minute ago.
I'm just telling you what I see, Paulie.
Okay.
No, look, Wilson. No one would argue the early returns have not been good enough.
Of course not.
Oh, that's Johnny, you always know how to put the words.
But every guy gets 3 years, right? Every guy, NFL, normal MO is 3 years. The guy's just starting his third year, so why are we even jumping on him now?
I'm not jumping on him, Paulie. I'm just making an assumption.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All right, next point, Wilson.
Listen,
next one.
Another thing, the Giants need players. Okay, remember the Tommy DeVito that you said that he will get picked up if the Giants put him on waiver? No, he won't. You know why? I saw third-string quarterback that throw the ball 100 times better than Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito is a nice kid. He can't throw the ball 30 yards on the field. So
that's not true.
Come on.
I changed my mind. Come on, Paulie. Oh my God! I saw a couple of games here and there. I'm not just calling you for the hell of it. I'm just telling you that you might be a little scared that if nobody's going to pick him up. And the Giants need players, and this is I'm gonna lead to my main point.
Yes.
And it's this: my brother-in-law, he's a huge Jets fan. He's probably the only flaw that he has. And he had and a friend of his called him. I guess they let fans on the joint practice against the Jets the other day.
Yeah, fans were there.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. All right, so anyway, you know what he told me? He said that Aaron Rodgers was like toying with the Giants' defensive back. It was like men against boys. Was that true?
Aaron Rodgers played very, very well.
He was totally in sync, and he looked like a fine-tuned machine. No one is disputing that at all.
All right, so it is true then that the defensive backs were like a little over the head, or maybe they had the greatest game.
Again, to be fair, and we mentioned this yesterday, there were a few times, not a ton, but a few times he would have been sacked, and the play was allowed to continue, and then he wound up completing a nice pass.
But Wilson, yes.
Yes.
The Giants' defensive backfield allowed too many big plays.
They had trouble.
Okay.
They had trouble.
All right, so it was true. All right, so listen. So if that's the case, Johnny and Paulie, we cannot go to the first game of the season. I know that there's waivers and a waiver wire and all that stuff. I understand that, but something's got to be done, man, because it'll be a disservice to the fans, to the franchise, and it'll be malpractice. And if it was as bad as it was, and this is why the Giants always drive you crazy, because there's always question marks here and there, question marks there. I understand that you can't have Pro Bowl players all over the place, but there's always we don't know about the backfield. We don't know about the defensive back. There's always that question mark, that we go to the season with that question mark all the time, and I don't understand. Why can they maybe fix it? A little. Not that we're going to have Pro Bowlers all the way in the backfield, but to be a little confident. And to me, for what I hear, there's not that much confidence in the backfield. Am I wrong or am I right, Johnny?
No, look, I think the Giants will be looking to upgrade that area, and I think they're going to look for guys. And at this point, Wilson, waivers are going to happen in 4 days. So I don't think there's no need to go and sign somebody now. I think now at this point you can wait to see what waivers looks like. Maybe you can, if you get word from another team that they're looking to release a cornerback you think can help you, maybe you be a little proactive. You try to make a trade before the waiver claims period comes up. But I don't think you're looking – if they were going to sign one of these street free agents that's out there, they would have done that by now.
Unless that guy wanted to wait for a particular reason.
And I take it up. Paulie and Johnny, last question before, and I take it up here. So right now, today, Friday, you guys have question marks about the backfield? Yes or no?
Defensive backfield? Yeah. I mean, I think I said the other day that's the spot where I have the most questions about, yes.
It's thin.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. Well, hopefully we can fix it then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
Appreciate the call.
There's no better place to watch live TV this fall than Hulu Plus Live TV. Why? Because you get your favorite sports like football, local channels, shows, and so much more. Plus, get Hulu's entire streaming library with Disney Plus and ESPN Plus included with your plan. No long-term contracts or hidden fees. Don't wait. Start your 3-day free trial of Hulu Plus Live TV today. Live TV plan required. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for new and eligible returning subscribers only if available. Terms and restrictions apply. Learn more at hulu.com.
All right.
I wish we could have gotten to that 10 minutes ago.
Let's go to Wilson's foil, I guess I'll call him. Let's go to Charlie in Portland, Maine. Hi, Charlie.
What's up, Charlie?
Hey, John. Hey, Paul. Oh, my God. I've been just kind of watching things, and, I'm not getting too... it's preseason and all that. So I was going to wait till after this Jet game to call you guys. But, look, Evan Neal, hopefully his ankle is 100%. I got a feeling it's not.
Charlie, I'll be honest with you, though. Watching him, he is moving better laterally than I've seen him since he hurt his knee/ankle/foot last year. So... Look, who knows? I'm not in the medical room with the trainers. The last couple of days of practice, he looks to be moving pretty well, and you'll get to see it with your own 2 eyes on Saturday night. I'd love to get your take and call back next week. Let me know what you think.
Charlie, I would only say you'd be pleasantly surprised. I wish you could have seen his last couple of practices. It would have startled you.
And again, I don't want to make too much of this, Charlie. It's 2 practices, one without any pads on. All right, so let everyone relax and calm down. But again, that's all we've been able to see. Let's take what we can get.
Yeah, and the other thing is he's going to be going up against what? The 2s and 3s of the Jets?
Well, Charlie, that's why. Really so he better win those matchups then, right? Right. So if he goes out there and he struggles against the 2s and the 3s, that's a red flag then, right?
No doubt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying I don't think this guy's going to make it. I said it when I saw him in training camp, when he couldn't even stand up.
We can screen one more.
When he first came in. But that's the way I feel about him. But
no, Charlie, look, being in prove-it mode with him and not believing it until you see it, I totally get being in that spot. That's fine. Totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the thing is, we better have a good swing tackle. Thomas hasn't been healthy the last couple of years. So I know you don't want to hear about it, Paul, but you better have a good swing tackle because you're going to need one. And I don't know if we have that guy on this roster. I don't think Zuru is that guy. Maybe this Miles guy, maybe. I don't know, but they better find one because they're going to need one.
Well, I would say, Charlie, all jokes aside, if Andrew Thomas does have an injury issue, I think Illuminor is your left tackle, and then I think they slide in Neal at right tackle. I think that's what would happen.
That's probably the answer. I don't think there is another answer, to be honest with you. That's the only solution that they would have at their disposal right now.
And that's why, all the Hard Knocks, I'm not sure if you watched it, they had Illuminor near the top of their wish list on the offensive line. Maybe not necessarily because he was like the highest graded player, but it's his versatility to play all these spots and his familiarity with Carmen Brasillo. It gives him, there's just so much value there to the player, which is why I think he was such a big target for them to bring him in.
Charlie, look, I will just add one more thing. We know that the Giants are thin in some spots. Their starting 22 should be better than they've had in most of the last decade. I think talent-wise, skill set-wise, it's an improved starting 22.
Why don't we use 8 years? Because I don't want to include 2016. Because 2016, they were pretty good.
Okay. But almost a decade.
Yes.
Okay? Skill set-wise, talent-wise, this roster is improved.
I think it's better than the one 2 years ago they made the playoffs.
I think you could make that case.
There are holes in different spots,
right?
But I think overall it's stronger.
Right. So that's what you have to go off of. Now, if you want to isolate certain spots, that's fair because there are certain spots that are very thin. There's no question. I'm not going to dispute that at all. And you're right. If they got to play a third tackle, or God forbid, we keep talking about CB2. Let's say Banks gets hurt.
Oh, that's a problem.
What in the world happens if Tay Banks gets hurt? That is devastating, right? That is devastating. So no one is telling you that everything is a rose garden here. But what we are saying is that the starting 22 is on the way up skill set wise, and that's a really good place to open the conversation. You want to go deeper than that, no question, there are thin spots. So I'm not disagreeing with you, and you're pointing out some of those spots, and that's fine. But right now, as the season begins, you want to start by talking about how does your 22 look? And the Giants have a better 22.
Well, I think, Paul, we're going to find out if they think they do when the cuts happen.
Sure.
And if we end up picking 5 or 6 guys, that means our roster is not as good as we think it is.
Well, it could mean the depth chart is not as good.
Well, Charlie, remember, Paul said 22.
Right.
So you're talking about
Okay.
the second 22 in that case.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or the second 12. Right.
Right. I hear you. Okay, let me just say something about Daniel Jones, okay? The Texas game, look, it's not about rust. This guy threw in the OTAs, he threw in summer camp, he was getting all the reps, and he threw 3 interceptions. One was dropped. And, I know you said he got better. He got better against the second and third cornerback.
Charlie, no one.
Charlie,
no one.
And no, let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish.
I was going to agree with you, but okay.
The defensive starters didn't even play, the defensive ends for the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with Jones is he cannot play well against good teams. He doesn't able to do that. He can play okay against second and third players or bad teams. Look, he is the same guy with the beard or without the beard. He is the problem on the offense. He is the issue. And you're all going to see that finally this year. Paul, you're going to have to say he was not the guy. And that's what's going to happen because he isn't. He is not a quarterback for the New York Giants. He's not.
Thank you,
and the
Charlie.
thing is with DeVito, one more thing.
Yep.
With DeVito, he's probably going to play the whole game Saturday, right?
Good chance of that.
Very likely.
Yeah, good chance of that.
Yeah, if he plays really, really well, he might be the second-string quarterback. But if he plays really, really bad, he'll be on the practice squad because they'll take their chances.
Right.
That's it, guys.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate the call. I don't want to have the whole Daniel Jones debate here. Here's the bottom line. You're right, Charlie. We're going to find out. They're going to hand the ball. This is going to be a pass-heavy offense. They're going to throw it all over the park, and we're going to see if Daniel Jones can handle it.
Daniel Jones has reached a fork in the road in his career. If he earns the right to be the Giants' starting quarterback moving forward, he's going to have to work at it, and he's going to have to prove it. If he doesn't, whatever the reason is, and I've made this very clear on this program, the circumstances around him are not going to count anymore, John.
Mm-hmm. No,
if Daniel
100%.
Jones does not get the job done this year,
this is it.
Even with the $22 million salary cap hit, the Giants will digest that, and they've got a legitimate chance to move on. Daniel Jones is at a fork in his career, and we're going to see which road he takes.
Same it was 2 years ago. It was the same deal as 2 years ago.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It's on him.
All right, we got 1 minute. Andrew in Asbury Park. You're going to wrap us up, Andrew. What do you got?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I just want to start off by saying, I've been listening on the podcast for like 7 years. I wanted to thank you guys for putting on a great program every single day. Us diehards really appreciate it.
Andrew, I appreciate you listening and calling in and letting us know that. And I hate to rush you, but you got about 60 seconds, then we got to roll out, okay?
No problem. I'll make it really quick.
Yes.
I wasn't listening live. I don't know if you guys have already addressed it today, but I was hoping to get a quick update on the offensive line, what you guys think the starting 5 is going to be to start the season. And when do you think Evan Neal might get, mixed into the starters if he can supplant Illuminor right tackle?
Absolutely. Pierce, do me a favor, leave him up so he can at least hear us as we give the answer. I think Paul and I both believe it's going to be from left to right. Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, John Michael Schmitz, Van Roten at right guard. Right tackle will be Illuminor. Stinney is your 6th guy off the bench. He would step in at either guard spot if someone gets hurt. Evan Neal will have a chance to marinate on the bench, work his way forward. And look, I don't think he's going to supplant one of the two starting offensive tackles unless something happens to those two gentlemen at this point. He'll have to earn his way in. And then Paul said after 4 or 5 weeks, he thinks he'd be the first guy off the bench.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would also just add one little asterisk here, and that is if John Runyon, for some reason, continues to labor with shoulder pain and has to miss time, that's going to obviously mean Stinney's got to be one of the starting guards. We just don't know 100% exactly where Runyon is. We think he's coming back quickly, according to Coach Dable.
Yeah, there was no fear of him not being able to start.
Didn't sound like it.
All right, folks, real quick. FanFest, Giants.com/FanFest. It's coming up next Friday. Make sure you go check that out. Giants.com/FanFest. You want Giants tickets? Giants.com/tickets. Giants 5K. It's the day after the FanFest, the Saturday before the first regular season game. So not Labor Day weekend, the weekend after that. It's the day after the FanFest. Giants.com/5K. Those are your links. That's where you got to go sign up. It's all free. Go check it out. Thanks for being with us on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. We'll see you next time, everybody.
There's no better place to watch live TV this fall than Hulu Plus Live TV. Why? Because you get your favorite sports like football, local channels, shows, and so much more. Plus, get Hulu's entire streaming library with Disney Plus and ESPN Plus included with your plan. No long-term contracts or hidden fees. Don't wait. Start your 3-day free trial of Hulu Plus Live TV today. Live TV plan required. Access content from each service separately. Offer valid for new and eligible returning subscribers only if available. Terms and restrictions apply. Learn more at Hulu.com.